Hello everybody, it is Monica again, and I just wanted to showcase a few artists that I think are worthy of following, especially if you want to master copy or just save their work as inspiration. So the first one is Alexandra Sidig Debouin. I'm probably butchering that, but I'll put the name on the screen. And the next one is Neskane HKS, Neskane Hong, and last one is Jason Hong. So, so these three artists, two of them are from France, and the last one is from New Zealand. The first two kind of have this fusion style, like Alexandra here. His stuff is very suited towards animation, but you can also see he does stuff that really fits games, like the video game development as well. And Neskane Hong, or Neskane HKS, his stuff also fits with games and animation, but his is like more comic book style, whereas this is more animation. Alexandra does some really like appealing, just the ratios of, elements in the drawing, like how there are different shapes and sizes of different parts of the body and different, it's something, the way that he designs is very considerate. Anyway, so now we're into Neskane's, and his stuff is more comic book, but he also does stuff that looks like it fits in animation and gaming. I know he worked for the comic book industry in France, and I think he does do some freelance video game design. He does a lot of these awesome like drawings and paintings, and his comic pages are so exciting, so very well designed. Something really just amazing that he creates appeal, but he creates it in a way that looks very exciting, very dynamic. He puts a lot of things on the page sometimes, but it doesn't look like it's a big old mess. It actually looks really nice. So that's why I really like his work. I'm, of course, speeding this up because I don't want to talk about them too long, and it's easier for me to scroll really quickly. So this next one is Jason Hong, and I can't find a lot of his stuff online. That's not his. But he has a lot of drawings kind of floating out there. He has a blogger. He was really active on ca.org when it was going on. He occasionally does like these awesome illustrative... Oh, that's not his either. That's somebody who's trying to replicate his style. But he has a whole bunch of stuff that's floating around that's super awesome. And he even has these amazing paintings, and it doesn't seem like he does as much of that design stuff anymore, but he's definitely worth checking out, at least for the sake of study. So I'm going to interject here and talk a little bit about what I'm doing. So in this initial gesture sketch, I'm actually starting with the shape of the composition of the drawing. Now, it's not like some huge elaborate drawing, but she does have a composition happening within this little sketch, and it's obviously an upside down diamond or kite shape. So I decided to highlight that by kind of going around and figuring out where everything is ending. I will be changing it as I go on drawing, adjusting as I go. And I'm leaving the bad lines, the lines that I really should be erasing, I'm leaving them in this time. I'm not erasing anything. And it's just to show how sometimes working things out and leaving the bad lines, the messed up, the mess ups, if you leave them in, it's not going to ruin your drawing. And in fact, it helps eventually, because as you get better and better, myself included, it actually helps you figure out problem solving if you leave the screw ups in there. If you ever go back to look at your drawing at a future date, you'll see where you made a mistake and you go, oh, I remember that. But I mean, even in the case that you don't ever go back to the drawing, it does actually help to just sort of draw the bad lines, not erase, and just draw over them. I'm really like pushing for this, but it actually does really help. And in general, it's kind of interesting to work things out and then see where you messed up and then try again. So in this case, I am struggling to get the proportions right on her legs and arms, and I am adjusting over and over again, but I am going to leave those mistake lines in because ultimately they won't be noticeable once I put in the final lines over. In this case, I avoided doing a sort of a lay-in drawing style of sketching because, like I've said before, Claire Wendling is very graphic, so I'm trying to stick to noticing the shapes and the silhouettes of the shapes and kind of focusing my energy on that. But in a way, it does hurt some of my proportions if I'm just focused on how things are shaped. Instead of laying in the general figures, with some sort of stick figure situation. That probably would be better ultimately, but I am trying to study a little bit differently. I like kind of finding things and leaving my mistakes in. It's kind of enjoyable. It's enjoyable to see when I fix some of the mistakes, and sometimes the drawing really, it's just a bunch of mistakes. It's a huge mass of mistakes all in one, but it's kind of interesting. It kind of helps in my own personal experience. It does. It strengthens your observational skills, and I'm okay with doing a traditional study where you draw in like the stick figures and you fix the proportions for an endless amount of time, but I'm going for speed. I don't want to spend forever on this. I want to focus on what was important to Claire. I'm obviously not drawing it the way that she would have drawn it, but I'm trying to honor the fact that she's going for this graphic, very strong read silhouette-wise. She's got very shapely look to pretty much every element. She's very masterful in her anatomy and observational drawing as well, so I'm trying to keep it pretty observational. As you can see, I have started in already in the final drawing stage where I'm going over it with the darker, softer pencil, the 6B Woodless. And this pencil is also useful because you can smudge with it. probably best to use an actual smudge tool because you don't want to walk around with grubby fingers and fingernails, but I didn't have one on me, and so I just kind of used my finger. But in any case, 6Bs are great. They are perfect for hitting those really dark darks, and you can do light lines, not as light as the harder leads, but it's sort of useful in that way. There are, I think, darker leads than, or softer leads than this one. I think there's an 8B, but it's basically like a charcoal pencil. So just to discuss really quick what I'm doing, I am going over my sketch with the darker lines, but I'm also going to go in and hit some of the details on my way down. So I started off with the heads because those were the focal points of the drawing, and then I will sort of gradually go down, hitting these little sketchy little wrinkles and little tiny like little sketchy details. And also just a quick note with the hair. The hair is the way that I'm drawing it is I'm trying to replicate the fact that she was kind of stroking the lines in the direction of the way the hair was curling. So it was kind of, there were different sections where they were going different directions, so I was trying to mimic that. I don't know if I was that successful, but I did try. So I'm trying to do it under the hair bow, this giant massive hair bow that's kind of cascading down her hair. And then from there I will work on the bow, and then I will work my way down through the details. You'll see that I will basically fix any of the problems at this stage. Any of the issues that I had trying to figure out proportion will kind of be not erased literally, but will be erased in the sense that I will draw over it and you won't really notice the mistake that I initially made on my way down. So even though the mistakes are there and the initial lay-in mistakes and lay-in drawings, those are all going to stay. I'm not going to erase them. They are going to essentially not be noticeable with this darker line kind of over it, correcting all of the mistakes. I think that's my final note until the next one.